So, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen it. The internet is pretty much losing its mind after we all got our first real look at Jason Momoa as Lobo in the new teaser for Supergirl. And honestly, even the most hardened, skeptical DC fans are kinda admitting they really, really like what they see. So what is all the fuss about? Let's get into it.
I mean, the reaction has just been overwhelmingly positive. And this quote from a fan on social media, man, it just hits the nail on the head. It says, Jason really was born to play Lobo. He looks perfect. It's like you shook a comic and he fell right out of it. The casting just feels right, you know? This is one of those rare moments of like total unity in the comic book movie world, which, let's be honest, almost never happens.
But that really is the big question, isn't it? Why is this one character reveal from a pretty short teaser generating this much excitement and goodwill? I mean, it's just one guy in makeup, right? Well, to really understand the hype, to get why this means so much, we first need to take a look at the pretty tough spot DC has been in for a while now. Okay, so to get why this Lobo thing is landing so hard, we have to talk about the recent track record. It's no secret the DC movie brand has gone through some seriously tough times, and for a lot of people, this feels like it could finally be a real turning point. Let's be real, the studio has been dealing with a string of movies that were, well, critical and commercial flops. You had all the controversy and disappointment surrounding The Flash. Then there was the letdown of Wonder Woman 1984, and even the Aquaman sequel, which kind of brought the old DC universe to a very quiet, underwhelming end. Fans have had a lot to complain about, and frankly, they needed a win. And this is where it gets really interesting, especially with Jason Momoa himself. Look, most people really liked his charisma as Aquaman. He brought a lot of energy to it. But the casting, it always felt just a little strange, didn't it? This super down-to-earth, rugged guy playing the regal king of Atlantis, it kind of strained belief. But with Lobo, the consensus is just, yeah, that's it. DC has finally put him in the role he was absolutely born to play. So who exactly is this character at the center of all this excitement? For those of you who might not be deep in the DC Comics lore, let's take a minute and meet Lobo, aka the main man. Okay, so here's the hilarious thing about Lobo you have to understand. He actually started as a joke. Seriously. He was created to be a parody, to make fun of all those super extreme, gritty, over-the-top anti-heroes that were absolutely everywhere in 90s comics. But a funny thing happened. Fans completely ignored the satire and just thought he was ridiculously awesome. And this is his entire vibe. He's just beastly. Someone described him perfectly as looking like every Judas Priest album cover combined, and yeah, that's pretty accurate. He embodies that totally extreme, leather and chains badass anti-hero style. It is completely over the top by design, and that's the exact reason people ended up loving him so much. Which, of course, brings us right back to the fan reaction. And like I said, this is one of the few things comic book fans on the internet are not arguing about lately. So let's actually look at what people are saying, because it's pretty telling. You know, sometimes the simplest reactions are the most powerful. Right after the reveal, a DCU fan account on X just posted this. 3 words. The mother is Lobo. It's raw, it's immediate, and it perfectly captured that gut-level feeling of approval that just swept across the internet. This comment really gets to the heart of it for so many people. It says, for years, Jason Momoa was playing a character he was never right for. Now they finally cast him as Lobo, which is perfect casting. See, it's not just about Momoa being good for a role. It's about him finally being in the right role. It feels like this big course correction that fans have been hoping for since he was first cast as Aquaman. It feels like justice. And you know what? This wasn't some happy accident. This recasting was a very deliberate move by the new head of DC Studios, James Gunn. It goes to show that the people in charge saw exactly what the fans saw. Momoa's raw, chaotic energy is a much, much better match for this interstellar bounty hunter than it ever was for the King of Atlantis. But as exciting as all this is, as perfect as the casting feels, we have to step back and look at the bigger picture. Perfect casting doesn't automatically mean a perfect movie. So the question becomes, is all this hype around Lobo really enough to carry the entire film? And here is a crucial, maybe even a disappointing piece of context. Despite all this buzz, Lobo is not the main villain of Supergirl. In fact, he isn't even in the comic the movie is based on, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. So his role in the actual movie is expected to be relatively small. And that fact leads to some lingering skepticism, because not everyone is convinced just yet. Some critics have already said they find the makeup a little uninteresting. Others are pretty wary of the movie's rumored tone, which has been described as It meets Guardians of the Galaxy, which is definitely an untested formula. To put it simply, not everyone is sold on the Supergirl movie itself, even with Lobo in it.
So what's the strategy here? Well, it seems pretty clear that including Lobo is a calculated strategic move. He's there to appeal to a very different demographic, to bring in an audience that might not otherwise be all that excited for a Supergirl movie. It's actually a pretty smart way to broaden the film's appeal and hedge their bets.
And all of that leaves us with the final million-dollar question. DC has absolutely 100% nailed this one element, and it's created a massive wave of goodwill for them. But will this one perfectly cast, likely minor character be enough to turn the tide for the studio? Is it enough to make Supergirl a certified hit? I guess we're all just going to have to wait and see.